morning. Some of you know me, some of you don't. My name is Destiny. The last 2 years, I've participated in Black Friday shopping. Went out to see what everyone else was excited about. Hadn't done it before that. I have a friend who actually saves all year for this event. Not sure why. Anyway, I went out and there were huge crowds. Wondered why, right? Price isn't too cheap. It's a little less than you normally buy it throughout the year. But anyway, it generated huge crowds across America. So I am going to go ahead and tell you how American consumers contribute to pollution in third world countries. Americans have high demand on jeans. About half of us, if not most of us, own a pair or two in this classroom. We wear them daily, but jeans are actually manufactured in a small town called Zhengtang, China. That is actually named the jean capital of the world. It's actually the dirtiest place in the world. Jeans are manufactured with metals. There were 17 out of 21 bodies of water that were tested, and they had 128 times the metal in their water than any other place in the world. Jeans are actually washed with multiple chemicals, and yet some, for whatever reason, we think they're so attractive when we buy them, but not knowing the effects, right? But yeah. So I'm also going to go ahead and move on to how electronics affect pollution in third world countries. We also have a high demand for electronics. Electronics are based on graphite. Graphite is a mineral that is found and produced in China. It is mined, which makes it create pollutants in the air. We demand cell phones, laptops, even electric cars, which therefore would put a higher demand on the creation of graphite, being mined a lot more. Which in turn causes pollution. It is so polluted in China that citizens are actually eating particles of graphite with each meal. Okay, the last thing I'll talk about is how the American disposal of recyclables contribute to pollution in third world countries. In India, for instance, the U.S. is the biggest contributor of recyclables. We send over 2/3 of recyclables to India. They are not really recycled. They are actually put into landfills. The landfills are no longer existent, so therefore they're actually placed in their backyards. They literally live with them day in and day out, walk through them, breathe it. And yet, Americans, we think because we're recycling that means great for us. No, it's not affecting either us or anyone else. However, we are actually affecting India. For instance, electronics, when they are put into landfill, they actually leak out the metals, mercury, which in turn affects the soil and the crop in India. I know it doesn't appear as though it matters to us, but it does because we are all connected. This world is connected. The pollutants that are put out in the air overseas actually come back to us, so therefore we're polluting ourselves. Eventually, there will be no space to send recyclables, electronics, or anything else of that nature, which in turn will come back to us on our home field. So I think it's something that we should all consider when purchasing items. Do we really need it? Do we have to buy it? Can we live without it? Okay, so I will conclude with, let's get some of these, but I'll go ahead and conclude with discussing the manufacturing of jeans, where they are manufactured, also how manufacturing electronics and how our recyclables affect third world countries. What we can do, because it starts with each and every one of us, because Americans are the #1 contributors, what we can do is we can actually recycle within each other. We can actually sell our items to places like Goodwill, for instance. You can sell them there and have each other buy them back. As far as cell phones, do we really need it? Do we really want it? Every time we buy one, we are going to dispose of another one, correct? Do we need the next model? If not, don't go for it. When making food or anything like that, use recycled containers, containers that you can use at home, come back, wash it, as opposed to something that we just discard when we're done with it. And also, keep in mind, again, that we eventually will be polluting ourselves. So think about not only third world countries, but how we will be affected in the future at the rate that we are going on our demand of products. Thank you. I completely skipped my preview. Yeah, that's the last one.
What did we just figure out that they're not here? Is that it? Paloma, you're not here? We'll give it 5 minutes. She'll be here. Is that mean? All right. Well, you're using the personal experience of Black Friday, but it was not very clear to me how that ended up being connected to the point, except that people are buying stuff, and it feels a little bit disconnected from the point of your presentation. The purpose statement that you have in your speech I thought was very effective at the beginning. It identifies what it is that you're trying to accomplish. But you sound like you recognize that you didn't have a previous statement, because I'm not sure exactly how it's going to develop. Now, as I'm watching it, it feels like it's in different categories that we're talking about pollution. It's jeans, graphite, and recycling. And I guess those are the three main issues that you're going to be talking about, but I'm only discovering them as you go through them. The first thing that I see as a big problem is that there's not any specific information about some of these things. It's very general information. Like you mentioned, the city in China that produces the jeans, and you say it's the most polluted in the world, and it seems like you're making the inference there that it's because of the jeans being produced there. I'm going, okay, so how does that happen? And the best I get is that the jeans are washed in some kinds of chemicals, and apparently they don't do anything with the chemicals except throw them in the streets. I mean, I don't know literally how it is that this ends up happening. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying I don't have any idea. You've just kind of pointed in the direction and say pollution, and the jeans come from there. And I need more than that to know what it is that's going on there. The same thing with graphite. It's like, I don't know. I mean, you say, well, it's mined there, it's manufactured there, it ends up in people's food. I'm going, well, is it dangerous? Is it harmful to people? Is it cause them some damage? I mean, I'm sorry, a lot of crap ends up in people's food. That doesn't necessarily mean that. Let's not talk about all the bugs that are in most processed foods. It's just. At my house, I'm lucky if I can get a piece of bread without some dog hair on it occasionally. So the question is, why is that something that we should worry about? What's bad about it? And is it because the process that's being used there is not adequate? They don't have any controls? You're pointing the finger at the consumers. what about the manufacturers? Do they not have any responsibility in the situation? What about the countries that are, incentivizing this and want the business? Do they not have any controls or responsibility in regard to that? I think that there's, not a discussion of what whole context is there. I think we need a little bit more of that. In the last part of the speech turns into a persuasive presentation. So it's basically a problem solution. So here are these three problems, and here's how you're going to fix it by really reconsidering whether or not you need a second pair of jeans or whether or not you need a new phone. And I have no idea how much impact it would have on the world if I stopped using plastic bottles for my water and just used a metal container that I carry with me all the time, especially if that metal container is manufactured someplace in China. It's probably going to be crappy anyway. So without any details on the information, I just don't know what kind of an impact it's going to have. There's a general discussion of the pollution issues, but it's so general that we don't know as much about it as we need to. And then there's a general discussion of solutions, but I have no idea about whether or not they are actually going to fix the problem or make any difference. So I think that those are problems. The visuals don't do much more than just kind of organize the speech and give us transitions as we go through. They're not adding any additional information about how big the problem is or telling us, how the solutions would work or anything like that. They just, kind of here's where we are at this particular point. They are interesting when you show them, and I think they do draw attention to the subject that you're talking about, but I think they could have a little bit more content to them. All right, let's stop there.